Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw. I'm here with Sharon Fake, who is the Director of Operations for Travel Experts. Now, if you don't know Travel Experts, you should. It's one of the largest host agencies in the United States. In fact, I've been covering them for so long. We'll talk about that I think they were the first. I mean, sometimes they would like to claim that title, and maybe they are. It was a unique model way back in the 90s. And we're going to talk to Sharon a little bit about her host agency, as well as obviously the topic du jour, how it's being affected and how her members, how her travel advisors are being affected by the coronavirus crisis, and where do we go from here? And you'll hear all about that and more on Insider Travel Report. Now, Sharon, it's great to see you. How are you and where are you?
I'm very good at the point. We're living in New Hampshire, so that's where I am in my home office. Very nice day today for a change. We've got some warm weather on the way.
Yeah, I heard it was a little cold up there for a while in the north.
Very, very cold.
Yeah. Yes, now, so your agency you're based really in Raleigh, Durham, down in North Carolina, but you have travel advisor affiliates all over the country. I don't know, I think it's about 900, 1,000 now, or something close.
Not quite that many. We welcome that many, but we have just shy of 500.
Oh, so it's and I've known you and Susan Farrell and for a long time. We actually, back at one of my old publications, I think we called you the perfect host or something like that. And
it's our tagline. It's actually trademarked.
There you go. And that was way back when in the mid 90s when you were kind of a rented desk type operation. So you were a host agency before it was a fad. So it's become more than a fad now. Yeah.
It started in 1989. So we're working on 31 years. I've been with Susan for 21 of those, and did live in Raleigh for a number of years before we decided to move back to be close to family in the Northeast. But it's a very vibrant location, and we keep growing, including, during this time, we sometimes find that tragedies or, difficult situations produce new advisors joining us as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that because it is true that when adversity strikes the world and people are sort of start thinking about what they really want to do in their lives, and they suddenly or get furloughed and have looking for other opportunities, somebody says, "Well, I like travel." And people gravitate to travel. In fact, I think at least one of your former advisors and maybe current advisor was someone I sent your way back when she wanted to join a Virtuoso affiliated host agency, and you certainly are one of a Virtuoso member and have been a strong and active member for quite some time.
Yes. We have indeed. It's been 20 years now with Virtuoso as well, and I know who you're talking about. And come next week, it'll be official. And so it's like kind of the circle of life. Someone who started with us years ago, and she jumped into this field and was so successful, went off and did her thing, and now is coming back home.
Well, and as I said to Susan, and back then, I think I got a key lime pie out of the deal, and she's already offered to send me one, but I'm not quite sure where I'll be, so we'll see what happens.
But she reminded me, James, of that this morning, that she does owe you a key lime pie.
Okay, well, once I settle down and figure out where I'm going to be for the little longer term, we'll talk. I can taste the pie already. I had two of them, actually, because I think I sent somebody else your way, too. Okay. But anyway, let's talk about the big question here. Sure. How are you working with your travel advisor affiliates during this crisis? What have you been doing in terms of the programs you've introduced to help them? And what existing programs that you already have you really emphasized or re-emphasized?
Well, as you know, our model is pretty simple. It's a fee-based 100% commission return. We're very transparent, so that's been a big draw. Everyone knows where their money is at all times. And so I think that, being as not as complex as some other programs, it's a real draw. We don't really have a program designed for beginners, so I can't really talk about, whether this particular period in time is, causing some people to want to join the travel industry, because our folks are pretty much experienced agents who are, coming to us, with a full book of business. So during this time period, when we realized the extent and the depth of the crisis, we tried to look at this kind of on a two-pronged approach. First, most important prong was the business side and the financial side, because obviously when everyone's business seemingly drops off the cliff, that is the first concern.
Sure.
So being fee-based and Susan being a very generous owner, she was able to eliminate or reduce some of the monthly fees. So on that kind of, and also some of the other procedures where, as you well know, there's a lot of recalled commissions during this time period, which end up with a negative balance against most of the people's accounts who have them. And instead of, saying that you have to pay these right away, many of them in the thousands, we're letting them hold on to them, and presuming that as the commissions come in, that will eliminate those balances. That's been, a very important issue for all of them financially. I think as a result of that, we've probably only lost a handful of agents. Many of the handful are basically because they were close to retirement and they decided that this was the time, this was the moment to say, okay, I'm going to retire anyway, I might as well do it now.
Right.
The couple or so that we've lost because they financially just feel that there is not a good future for them is understandably upsetting, but we understand. I mean, there's some that were not as successful, and you have to deal with that. But we've done everything we think financially that we can do for them, and the messages of support are extraordinary. I mean, they just, So that was part of the business part of it. We've also tried. I kind of have a list here because I didn't want to forget some of the things. One of the initial things that we found was very necessary. Obviously, we were being bombarded with news alerts and change in policies and refunds and everything. And we didn't feel there was a resource that was really as user-friendly, shall we say. There was a lot out there. There were some people collecting them, but so we have a very talented young lady on our staff, Sherry Brown, and she's very technically inclined. And so said to her, what do you think about creating our own website just for this in an organized fashion, searchable, whatever. Within 2 hours, she had it up and running. And so I think we have probably one of the most comprehensive sites for every supplier's updates. She does it every day. She keeps it going. That's been invaluable to the advisors. Heather McIntyre in our office, our finance and tech manager, was an expert in all the SBA and the PPP and all the initial programs that are out there. And, the rest of us kind of gloss over this, but Heather took it on from the get-go. It's something she really enjoys doing. She's very involved with ASTA. And so she was a lifeline for these agents because, every state, a lot of differences. And she was there, basically every day. That was probably her whole, focus for that period of time, and very successfully so. We also did a lot of personal Zoom calls with suppliers. Some of our biggest supplier partners, put together the Zoom calls, which they, felt were very important. And I think that does a lot to just encourage the advisors to keep up their knowledge, just to get a positive thing as opposed to always looking at the negative emails and whatever. We thought it was important for us to do checks on everybody. I mean, it's a lot of people, but we took every one of our agents, our primary ICs, divided them up amongst all of our staff members, and we're not a huge staff. I mean, we have about 22 people. And every one of them received either a phone call or an email shout out with a request if you want to call us, not to be intrusive, but just to say, we want to know you're okay. And what's your individual situation that we need to know about that, we may need to address in that manner. That was very successful. We're doing a ton of helping the agents with refunds, airline refunds, reissues. That's kind of customary, but enhanced directly. All of our staff, of course, is working remotely, and that's actually worked out very well, probably better than we anticipated. So we're not in a big rush to jump back into the office. North Carolina still has some fairly strong, protocols in place. We are actually adding a whole new HVAC, some kind of system, and I can't tell you the details because I'm not that savvy about them, to, add ultraviolet light and all of the things that they're suggesting, and that's going to be installed next week, so that will be ahead. We fortunately have individual offices for everyone, so, the social distancing aspect is going to be natural. So, but it's going to be a challenge. There's different levels of comfort, and so we're going to be dealing with that on an individual basis. We know that it works remotely, so we don't have to say this is it. You got to go back.
Yeah, well, your model is based on working remotely, so now you're.
It is. If we can't do it, anybody can. One of the things that we have, we're excited about, a little bit scared about, I guess, and hopefully it works out. A couple of weeks ago, I had some conversations with an agent and a couple of agents about they're rethinking their whole business model. Mm-hmm. The way they get paid, the timing of their payments, when they get the commissions and all of that, and how they can make life more secure for themselves. And so in talking to them, and there's a lot of creativity out there, a lot of innovation in this. And I thought, well, maybe we should see if there's some others out there in our group that have some ideas. And I sent out an email, and I got, several responses. Mostly I want to know. I don't know myself, but I want to know. And then I got 7 very strong agents who had different ideas, and we got together on a Zoom call, talked about it all, and I said, would you be willing to do a panel? So tomorrow in the afternoon, we're doing a panel Zoom call with these 7 very strong agents, and as of the check before this call, we've got 185 of our advisors signed up.
I'm sure. And I know one of my questions I was going to ask you is what kind of innovative and new ideas have some of your advisors come up with to maybe change the way they do business?
Yeah, well, there's quite a few, and I don't want to release anything now, but if this call is as successful as I think it will be, I'm sure that, they would be very good interview subjects as well. Okay. Some of them have already been doing it for a while, but not to the extent. I think more and more that there's a lot more emphasis on cancellations and how do I handle that, and how do I make money for the time I'm putting into all of this. So stay tuned. We'll let you know if it's a
well, you have very entrepreneurial travel advisors, and I think they probably will come up with some great ideas, not just about the cancellations, refunds, and all that, but which is ongoing as we keep getting pushed farther forward into the year, but also about commission payments and what the model should look like, and I think that's a good thing. Now, what is, aside from the first, the people who sort of said, well, I'm ready to retire, or a few that said, this isn't working for me anymore. What is the general mood, though, among your travel advisors about the situation?
Candidly, I think it's like all of us. It's up and down. Mm-hmm. You see some positive sprouts coming along, and some interest in bookings, and then you kind of look at the news and think, well, is this ever going to end? I think in general, because we've been trying, and that's been the second component of what we've tried to do. along with the business and the financial aspect, thinking about back in the beginning, is it too soon for fun, or is it too soon to look at a lighter side of this and maybe just, a community of things? So we've done some things that we think are, just kind of fluffy and fun, and we asked if everybody would send us a selfie with their favorite travel souvenir, and got a really good response to that, and people sort of said, this is just what I needed today. I need a reason to smile that has nothing to do with booking travel or whatever. We've asked for other theme submissions. We're going to continue that. Heather, our tech manager, suggested that we do, since everybody's thinking of domestic travel coming up, that we ask our advisors, our experts, for them to send something to us in their local area, whether it be an hour or two from where they live. So we got over 200, I think it's close to 300 submissions for that. She created an interactive map so that, if you want to go to Idaho or something and you want some ideas from some local, you can click on that and get some things that perhaps you wouldn't find normally, because they're recommendations from people who live in that area.
Sure, that's a great idea.
We've basically, tried to make things, when unfortunately Virtuoso Travel Week was canceled, and that's a very important, we usually send one of the largest contingents. Our videographer, he had, all these pictures from the past 10 years of Travel Week. He put together a video of all the things of the past 10 years at Travel Week and fun, and put it to music and everything. And again, it just, it gave you something to look at that reminded you of the good times and hopefully the ones that will come back again. And I think those are the kinds of things that, have really just made the difference in keeping them. Years ago when I got out of college and I was in education, and the first year I had to teach, and in a high school I got stuck with, doing 4 cheerleading squads, coaching them. I'd never been a cheerleader, but I thought I could at least inspire people to do something positive. And so that's kind of the function, I'm like cheerleader in chief here for keeping people, focused, but also putting a little bit of a different spin on things.
No, absolutely, and that's it's a very important function at this time in this crisis. Well, speaking of bookings, I mean, are some of your travel advisors, are they booking for later in the year and 2021 already? Are they getting something?
They are. I mean, I don't think the end of 2020 is going to be that big, but there are people who are sending us little snippets of, somebody is still wanting to go, and hopefully Europe will be open enough that they can go there at the end of the year. They don't want to miss that. Christmas markets, they're hoping that, that's something but I think much more for 2021. There's we book a lot of cruises, and all these future credits are out there. And so people it's funny, I was on a call yesterday with several, colleagues from different agencies who lead different agencies. And, they referred to the last 2 weeks, I won't use the term they referred to it, but as being a very strong booking period. And I would say the same thing. I don't do a lot of bookings myself anymore. I don't have time, but I have about a dozen clients that have stuck with me forever. And all of a sudden, the last 2 weeks, this is the time they want to use their cruise credits.
Sure.
I'm not sure what provoked that, but this period in time seems to be, whether it's the June 1st date coming up or Memorial Day or whatever, they're looking to make these bookings now.
Yeah, no, and I know, and unfortunately, all the cruise lines have put in those future cruise credits and tour operators as well, so that, and I'm hearing increasingly that most people who had cruises or tours scheduled are rebooking later as opposed to just wanting their refund. which means there will be commission on those trips.
Right.
And most of the suppliers, most cruise lines and tour operators and hotels are sticking with that commission and will pay travel advisors in the future. So that's really good news.
Well, I think you also had to, for the advisors, you had to, let them know that we're still paying out commissions. So when we pay our commissions every 2 weeks, and there's still a substantial amount of commissions that are going out.
That's
Which it didn't go to zero. And I think that's what happened. They, when everything got canceled, everybody thinks there's no more money. But, they have commissions coming in, not at the rate they used to, but there are some coming in, and they are increasing, every time we see a little bit more. So that's a good sign.
Now, what are you hearing from your travel preferred suppliers about the situation, and how are you working with them at this time?
Well, as closely as we can. Several have reached out, and that's very important. We appreciate that. I think the most difficult thing is that we're losing a lot of very long-term representatives that have been furloughed, and that takes a toll when, every week you hear somebody you've known for 20 years is now out of a job. It's our wish that these are furloughs and not terminations, but we know that, there's going to be many, many changes in everyone's business. And so that's hard. It's hard keeping up with that. The refunds and the time spent and the time that it's taking for them is a big challenge. We have, but we have successes, and I think everybody's, trying the best they can. We understand it's time and finances, and we have to, be appreciative of the fact that we're all trying to get through this. So.
No, absolutely. And I know I too have friends in cruise and tour industries that, when all this is whenever it's over, we're going to have to sort of take stock and see what happened to our friends and our acquaintances in the travel business, and if they're still around. Obviously there were some major changes on the cruise line executive roles. We've already seen 5 or 6. And we just don't know what's going to happen in the future. Let me turn to something a little more positive. We did talk about how the appeal of being a travel advisor. Now, you don't take newbies, but are you seeing more travel advisors out there that are not affiliated with you, maybe taking another look at what you have to offer and possibly making a change?
Well, to some extent, and it's because they might find themselves, unfortunately, in a situation where their agency will not be able to continue, and that's unfortunate. It's always it's never easy to move from one situation to another. We try and make it as seamless as possible, but emotionally, it's a difficult thing. But we want to make sure that people make a really good assessment before they decide to move, and also know everything that's going to be involved in the move. So we do see more people looking at us. It's been a kind of an unusual situation at this point when we sometimes get more people in bad times, but I think everybody has to look at their situation. If they're not going to have an agency to function through, then they're kind of needing to look for all the options. I mean, there's a lot of good programs out there, and everyone, I think, has their strengths, and so it's good. It's some good times to take a look if you really think so, and. But there's a lot of good. I mean, we have colleagues from other agencies, and I respect them as well. And I think, everybody finds their little niche, and hopefully stays where they're happy and fulfilled.
Well, one of the things this has done is that it's given people time to reflect on their business models and maybe looking at making changes to their business, and sometimes that does involve moving to another host. I want to go back to one quick thing. You mentioned that you have someone looking at all the government programs for assistance.
Yeah.
Whether that's the PPP, I don't know if any of your members would be eligible for the SBA loans, but a lot of
some actually have received it.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Well, that was my question. Either whether they got money from PPP in the form of also, unemployment, because obviously independent contractors were eligible, although a lot of states didn't figure that out until much later in the game.
Oh, yes.
What has been your experience in terms of those of your members who have sought out assistance, and how successful have they been at getting it?
Well, as I said, they worked very closely with Heather, and Heather, from the get-go was, as I said, she was very interested in this, thankfully, and so she kept up with it, and had all the information out to the advisors, whenever she got it, immediately before, deadlines, whatever. So she was very helpful to them. Most of the advisors who have gotten the money, whether it be an SBA or a PPP, have let her know. So I'm only seeing the positives. I actually haven't seen anyone say, and there probably are some that have not received financial. We had a fairly large portion of our advisors go into this with a booming 2019. So they, there are some that basically didn't feel that they had to pursue this option. They're getting through this period of time. And so I think overall, we're not seeing maybe the average type of travel advisor who is not, didn't have such a good background financially.
No, absolutely. And the sad thing about all this is that 2020 was going to be a fantastic year from everything that I hear.
It started out great. I just had a booking report from Virtuoso Air, several of them, because as I'm sure you probably heard, they're taking a pause. And for the last 8 or 9 years, we've been their number one, revenue producer. And it's interesting to see. I mean, all the way through, even through March, we were, had a positive flow, and then of course everything now is negative because it's all, but it was starting phenomenally. It really was.
No, and that's for us too in our business. There's no question about it, and we're only in our third year now. So I was very hopeful, and March was supposed to be our best month, and that's it. Now we'll just have to hibernate for a little while. Now, although I don't hibernate, I seem to be working harder than ever. I got to tell you that. It seems like we all thought there'd be time to pause and reflect, but from at least from our angle, we're doing more stories and more interviews, and just getting out more content than ever before. But
I think you're right about. I do think you're right about that. I said we've been we feel like people who are not in the industry, friends or whatever, say, "Oh, you must be enjoying." It's not so busy now, and you have got all this time, and that is, not the case at all. As we all know, we're doing different things.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are there any other messages you want to get out to both your travel advisors and even to travel advisors in general about travel experts, about the crisis we're in now, and how we can recover?
Well, I think. The general message is we are going to get through this. It may take longer than we initially thought it would take, and that's probably disheartening to a lot of people. But, our whole basis is individuality. We have these 500 or so entrepreneurs, and they don't all fit in one mold, and we don't expect them to fit in one mold. So, we want them to feel that they have the support in their individual choices of business model, and that we are going to do everything possible to make them to be continued success. And, we're going to come out on the other side, hopefully, with better programs in place, with more knowledge, with using the expertise and the experience of the agents in the agency. I mean, they are our best resource at this point. So we're going to use it.
And as well you should. It's going to be an interesting time, but I think hopefully, as you said, we'll all emerge from this stronger and better, and it just probably won't be till 2021 at this point. But Sharon, I want to thank you for taking the time to fill us in on what's going on at Travel Experts, a host agency I've known for quite some time and covered for a long time. I've known you and Susan for equally long, and I'm going to miss seeing you at Virtuoso Travel Week, because that seems to be the time when we do get together. But it's great to hear that how you're getting through this crisis and having a more positive side and a look ahead. And again, thank you very much for interviewing with us today.
Thank you, James. It was my pleasure.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.